My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey, folks, welcome back. And if you've been around real estate for any time, you're very, very familiar with short-term rentals and what a boom this was for a long time for people, increasing their cash flow, getting things really rocking and rolling. And then, of course, rules and regulations change. Municipalities are tightening things up, making it more difficult. So what do you do if you have a short-term rental that's not allowed to be a short-term rental anymore? Well, today's special guest, Lindsay Lovell, zooming in from beautiful San Francisco, has had that experience, and she has found a way to pivot from short-term rentals to something else that is also very, very much in demand, profitable, and actually a way to do good at the same time that you're investing in real estate. So Lindsay, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Yeah. So Lindsay, give us a little overview. I know you do a variety of things when it comes to real estate investing. So maybe just give us the Coles Notes 30, 60-second version of what does your portfolio, what does your real estate portfolio look like today as of the end of October 2024?
Sure. So we have about 60 long-term rentals. Like you mentioned, we do still have short-term rentals where we haven't faced changes in regulation. So we have about 12 short-term vacation rentals throughout the US. And then as of today, we have 5 sober living homes throughout the US under our brand Revive Residence.
Lovely. That is wonderful. All right. So lots we can dig into, but considering time, Lindsay, I think it'd probably be best if we focus on what we were talking about off camera, is the fact that you're starting to switch or transfer some of your short-term rentals into these sober living homes. So maybe tell us a little bit of the backstory around that, if you would.
Yeah. So I, with a partner, started G6 Capital. Did 3 first 3 funds investing in short rentals, markets across the city. We had the strategy of, going sexy, popular places like the Smokies or the beach in North Carolina, as well as what we consider to be very stable, but yet cash cows, unsexy markets like Kansas City, Missouri. And unfortunately, even though we had done all the research, which, everybody should always be doing and understanding the regulations, literally overnight, Kansas City, Missouri went from being Airbnb friendly and working with us and having an open forum and discussion for us as owners to be working with them on how to regulate and permit and improve that process, to suddenly saying pretty much anybody, unless it's your primary home, you are not able to Airbnb it, which was a lot. We had, I believe, 5 or 6 Airbnbs there at the time, and it was just before the summertime. We had ones with pools, and that's just the prime time, and we had quite a full calendar. And it gave us about 60-day notice before we had to have everything shut down.
Wow.
And most people can understand when you buy an Airbnb, especially to be competitive, it needs to be unique. It needs to be a standout home. And so a lot of these homes didn't necessarily appeal or make sense to rent out as long-term full-time rentals. They weren't going to fully cover the mortgage.
You wouldn't have purchased it in the first place as a regular rental. You purchased it specifically as a short-term rental because that's about the only way you could make it cash flow, theoretically. Now, there's different ways, but initially, right, it just doesn't make sense as a single-family home as a rental. Got it.
Exactly. Not for, the projections that we had given to our investors and to ourselves, what we were hoping to be able to do. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, there's this whole midterm market, and we went to crash pads, and I forget the other one that's really popular for nurses. And it was one of those where everybody else in Kansas City, Missouri was also trying to pivot that way because they were all in the same boat that we were in. And so I don't even remember, but late night came across something talking about group homes. And being from San Francisco, until I was, in my 30s, you rented a room, you lived with other people, you have roommates because it's expensive. And a
Yeah.
lot of these places are big homes turned into, a rental property. And so for me, it made sense. Okay, well, what can we do in terms of renting by the room? And then as I started to dig into the different way that directions of, people can take their group homes, sober living started to come up.
Yeah,
And
because what a
I,
lot of people have
yeah,
heard of is pad splits, right? So renting by the room kind of thing, the pad split idea.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But sober living turns out to be a little bit different,
Yeah.
at least the way we run it. So group homes can be run in many different ways. You can do pad split, and certain people, what I've found in the groups that I've sort of gone to for mentorship and such is people tend to focus on a certain population, like veterans,
Mhm.
like maybe children that are aging out of adoption, but not quite at that 21 age,
Right.
those that are recovering from certain surgeries. And what you can do is provide a home that caters to those individuals' types of needs. And so with sober living, what it is we have it's a structure and a program, not so much just roommates renting and splitting a pad.
Mhm.
So what we do is to put in place, these are usually individuals who require them to have had sobriety for 30 days at least. We have a house manager who is typically one of their peers, so also going through and from the recovery community. And these individuals are typically coming to us after they have been in some sort of, 30, 60, 90-day rehab or detox program,
Yeah.
and are still maybe doing what they call IOP, intensive outpatient. And so our houses are a place for them to have a safe, sober environment as well that has accountability. So we run ours with having a curfew. We administer weekly drug tests.
Right.
We have a house meeting where often the 12 steps are worked through. We also have, we provide the beds and the linens and the cleaning materials. Everybody signs up for chores. So in some ways, it is maybe more like a typical communal living in that sense, but it also has that accountability, and people are not signing leases. They are signing, it's more like a hotel tenant where if they break a rule or they unfortunately relapse, they are within a certain time frame, they need to leave. It's not like evicting a tenant or something like that. So it is very much sort of like a program as much as it is just leasing space to individuals needing a place to live.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I think I've interviewed a couple of the other people that are kind of in the space, Lindsay, but they do it a little bit differently, or some of them do. And that is they find, I don't know, organizations that already run these kind of properties, and then they just basically rent them the entire property and let them run the business. But it sounds like you're taking that role. So maybe what are some of the challenges with doing that? Because it sounds very hands on.
Oh, it can be very hands-on. And ironically, I think people probably start doing that where they rent to Oxford House is a big one that
Right.
often rents from landlords, and and I've met people that specialize just in renting to Oxford, and we do have a couple of those actually where they'll pay slightly over market rent and we rent to Oxford, and they're great tenants. But some of the homes didn't quite meet the requirements that Oxford has, very specific parking and
Mm.
number of refrigerators. And so we decided, well, we think these houses still would be great. We're going to go ahead and run it ourselves. And you asked what some of the challenges were,
Yeah.
which we quickly figured out. Some of it, we had a house that didn't quite work out, even though it was an amazing layout.
Right.
Um, it was not near public transportation,
Mm.
and a
Yeah.
lot of individuals aren't coming with cars.
Right.
Or on the flip side, we had one that was up a steep driveway, and you couldn't park at the street below, and it wasn't enough parking because of,
Mm.
we were just far enough out of a certain location that people needed to be able to drive, have a couple people have cars.
Right.
Um, So that is one of the challenges, is really finding the right fit. The other fit is, I mentioned the person that is there on the ground. So I live in San Francisco, like you mentioned. These houses are in Missouri, Colorado, and Oklahoma. So I'm not there. And so you're relying very heavily on your house manager. But the house manager is typically a person, the way we run it is they get free rent for being kind of the leader and holding the accountability, but they themselves are also going through recovery.
Right.
And it can be very hard to be a leader of your peers and deal with people that are going through the same struggles as you. And so finding somebody who is reliable, that can hold other people accountable while also, working through their own sobriety, can be a big challenge, somebody you can trust. And then building up your referral network. So when you're new to the game, fortunately, unfortunately, sober living has become more and more of a known thing, a hot
Yeah.
spot thing with investors. And there have been enough in the past that have come in and haven't been in it for the right reasons, and have really burnt some of these rehab centers, right? So a lot of our referrals, what I spent the first year doing is just reaching out, introducing ourselves and saying, here's my passion story, why I'm doing this, how I've been touched by mental health and addiction and family and friends, and why, you could trust us to send your individuals to come live in our homes.
Right.
And building that trust in that relationship takes a lot of time.
I believe
And people are going to relapse, and you have to make sure that you have the right insurance and the right resources for them if and when they do. And we're also dealing with people who want to get sober, but don't always necessarily have a job. And it's the chicken before the egg. You need them to pay rent and hold that accountable, but how do you give them time and resources to be able to get a job and save up money? And so it's a whole kind of surround sound framework that you're working with, not just the house is just kind of the basic step one building block.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like a lot of challenges. What are the big benefits of this model? What do you like about it?
Yeah. It's really, I've had moments where I've literally had somebody, women text me and be like, Lindsay, I've been here for 2 months. You've literally saved my life. In the middle of the night, she reached
Wow.
out. We sent an Uber, out of pocket, just saying, all right, get to our house, as long as you pass the drug test, we can figure, everything else out, and then helping them, find resources and charities. And, getting texts like that, I think, is the really incredibly rewarding thing. 3 of my house managers have been with me now since day one, which is over about a year and a half ago. And having those relationships, and one, I literally went in the middle of the night and picked her up off the street from a sober living house that she was being kicked out of because he had found out that she was interviewing for the job at the house manager with mine. So again, lots of different things that happen that people aren't in it for the right reason.
Mhm.
And she has been with me, since that time, and has become a very good friend. And I've watched her really become strong and accomplish a lot of things, get her driver's license back, purchase a car. So things like that are what makes kind of finagling all those challenges worthwhile.
Now let's talk about the financial side of things, because people watching this are, they're looking to do good, but it's property profits. It's about making a profit at the end of the day.
Yes.
So if you don't mind sharing, maybe walk us through how the numbers might look.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's been interesting is what we had to do is kind of take products and assets that we already had and fit them in and make them work as best as we can. Now, knowing what we know, knowing the formula, we plan to expand and be able to be even more profitable
Yeah,
buying
you
houses in
buy
the right area.
properties in the right area,
Exactly,
the right size, the
exactly.
whole bit. Got it.
So
Yeah.
for someone, to give you an idea, and it really depends on the market. So our sober living house in uh, Missouri, those individuals are paying $700 a week, and
A
each
week.
room is
Wow.
holding 2 individuals.
Wow.
So, and
Holy
that
shit.
house can hold 7,
7 individuals or 7 rooms?
7 individuals.
Okay. So, all right. My
Yep.
math's not my math's not that good, but
49, so
that's
49,000, excuse me, 4,900 a month.
4,900 a month. Okay.
Yes. Yes,
Wow.
when we're full on a mortgage that in Missouri is about, 2,000, 2,200.
Okay.
Then we do have the expenses of drug tests, but you start learning and you buy those in bulk, right? You
Yeah.
don't go to Walgreens and buy them. There's the initial startup of beds and linens, but I think what was the biggest kind of interesting thing for me, having come from Airbnbs, it needs to be clean, it needs to be safe, but it does not have to be the decor that is cute and charming and
Yeah.
decked to the nines. You get just basic twin beds, sheets, pillows, linens, and a dresser. And that's what each and every person needs in half of a closet. So, the startup costs, when I was opening these houses, I could do it depending on where it was, pretty much in, 3 to 5 grand to fully furnish a house.
But they were already furnished out for Airbnbs, weren't they? So
The ones that were Airbnbs, we have since then gone in and taken some that were long term that we knew would be good uh sober living
okay.
and changed
Yeah.
them. So
Got it.
those that we did. But yes, and that was great. And that was why we can charge a slightly higher price of 700 in a market where probably typical 5 to 550 other sober living homes, because we are an incredibly nice house in a beautiful, wonderful neighborhood.
So $700 a week. Um, that sounds pretty pricey to me for some folks that are coming through drug and alcohol addiction challenges. How do they afford that?
Yeah. So, that does include their utilities, their internet. So we pay for everything like that. But it is, like I said, on the higher end price point, some of the people and the relationships that we've built are coming from graduating from programs where they're being sponsored. They've done incredibly well. They've been identified as an individual that really has the desire and shown the ability to hopefully really stay strong in their sobriety. And so we work with certain centers that will sponsor them for 3 months. And
Mm.
that gives them plenty of time to get a job, start saving, and either, stay long term with us or then be able to have the down payment and first month's payment to go and rent.
Mm.
And did I say 700 a week? I am so
Yeah.
sorry. 700 a month.
Oh God. Okay. Well, that makes a huge difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference.
I'm going
Excuse me.
2,800 bucks a
Yes.
month for these guys
One
for half a room.
Yeah, 185 a week. Excuse me. It's been a day. 185 a week,
700 a month.
700.
700 a
Yes,
month. I can do.
700 a month. 700
Got
a
it.
month.
Okay. Well, that's
Yes.
that's a pretty good deal, actually. So yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that makes the numbers make sense. You got 7 people times 740. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
And it varies per markets. Up
yeah.
until recently, with the hurricane, we did have a sober living in Asheville
Oh
where
wow.
that was $400 a week. So you do see 1,600 a month. So
Yeah.
it does vary per market
Yeah. Yeah.
and what product you're offering in that house. We had a hot tub and a yoga room and things like that. So
Nice. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, very, very cool. Um, how did so the ones that you've had to that you've transitioned from short-term rentals, Airbnbs, for lack of a better term, into sober living facilities, how has that compared cash flow wise to what you were accustomed to? Like, did you take a big
Yeah.
hit on those or at least
I would say it is obviously more than long term,
yeah,
but slightly less than really successful vacation rentals.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
But only
So
slightly less.
only slightly less. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So, and it also depends, like I said, those ones were kind of tried, true, steady. So it's not like we were making 10 grand a month in Kansas City, Missouri. But
No.
we, probably after all expenses and everything, for us, it's not worth it to open a house or continue a house if it's not cash flowing after everything, mortgage costs, all of that, about anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 a month.
Hmm.
So when you're, long-term renting and you're hoping to get, a couple $100s after you put reserves away,
Hmm.
it's definitely a lot better than that. And it just, I also think it depends a bit on, as we've gone and built our relationship, our occupancy continues to stay more and more full. And so we're seeing that profit increase as we're
Yeah.
able to, start having wait lists and everything.
Yeah. Okay. Now you've touched on the fact that unfortunately some not so great actors have entered this space, really just focused on the profitability of these sober living group homes. Tell me a little bit about that, and what do you see happening that's just kind of giving everybody a bad name a bit?
Yeah, there was I can't remember if it was in the New York Times or something, but there was a big uh kind of article that came out in Arizona where people were literally going and recruiting because in some states, some counties, the government does pay for individuals in certain programs.
Got it. Yeah.
And people were literally going out and recruiting people to start drinking again so that
Oh,
they would be in need.
of the sober living facilities. Yeah.
And how it works with some programs is like after you get sober, you go ahead and you have certain amount of months that are paid for by the government. And so when that runs out, they pay people to relapse so that it starts all over again.
Yeah. So they, yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Scumbags.
Yeah. So things like that.
Yeah.
And then just situations where, like I mentioned, the woman that's been with me now for a while, where they're not holding people accountable. They're squeezing five people into a room. They're
Yeah.
verbally abusive. You see it, you hear it all. And so, those are kind of the situations and the reputation that you're trying to sort of fight against when you first get started.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. Now, huh. What would you say now that you're starting to look at properties and buying properties specifically for this model? What is like a really good property for this? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I always encourage everybody to make sure to understand, each city is going to have sort of different regulations, but in the city of Kansas, you can't have more than 6 individuals per bathroom.
Mm,
Right. So finding a place that has, one that we really liked was 4 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms.
yeah.
Nice kitchen, ranch style is always ideal, just the up and down stairs, and then people aren't complaining about, roommates above them.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, having at least 3 to 4 parking spots that are accessible. And as silly as it sounds, you are holding people accountable, but we're adult age and we probably are even smarter than we were with kids. So ones that don't have a ton of doors to be sneaking out of all hours of the evening, I found can be an interesting thing for the house manager. Um, and ones that have closets in every room. It's hard when you get a place and it's, a non-conforming and you have to put an armoire in there. It's not the end of the world, but if you're going to be nitpicky, it's easy to have closet space for everybody and people are happy.
Now that you've been doing this for a year and a half, Lindsay, what's the typical length of stay of your clients or tenants or whatever you call them?
Yeah, that's really a great question because there really isn't.
Hmm.
Some people come and they're with us for 2 weeks. We've had some people now that have been with us for 6 months. We do not have you have to leave after a certain amount of time, but
Right.
I would say the longest is about 6 months. Ideally for what they say in the recovery community and building new habits and accountability, we say 3 months is kind of the ideal minimum.
Hmm. Okay.
But people are welcome to stay really, really as long as they want. Like I mentioned, my house managers have been with me now, for a year and a half living in the house.
Yeah. No, that is very, very cool. Well, thank you very much for sharing some insights onto this, and congratulations for figuring out a way to pivot when the city's changed the rules lickety split. I mean, that's so maddening, that's for sure. Um, Lindsay, I know that you help people when it comes to real estate investing. So if people are saying, "Hey, this sounds like a very sharp investor, I'd like to connect and find out more," where should they go?
Yeah. So sharing a bit with you, I love giving back. I love teaching. So I do have a coaching program. And if you want to just set up time to chat, connect 30 minutes, anybody can go to millionairesmarchfree.com free strategy session. So Millionaires March free strategy session.com. Grab time on my calendar. And let's just brainstorm and see what's the right direction for you. So please, anybody interested, I would love to connect.
Awesome. Lindsay, thanks very much for being on the show. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you on the next one. Hey there. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.